With the digital version of Wingspan at everyone's fingertips, this game is finding new habitats all over the world. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with a recent two-player Wingspan tournament champion. We'll share that game and talk strategy, and we'll learn more about the Wingspan tournament scene here on Legendary Tactics. I'm here with Nato today to chat with Tay-Ray, who is graciously sharing his game with us and chatting about Wingspan. Congratulations on your win, and thanks for joining us today, Tay-Ray.
Yeah, thank you guys. I'm really excited to be here. Really, I'm truly impressed by the quality of the content that you guys are putting out there. So it's truly my pleasure to be invited here to chat with you about a game that I really liked a lot, which is Wingspan.
Yeah, that's great. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started with the tournament scene?
Yeah, so initially I was on the official Wingspan Discord, and then I started seeing invite for the tournament, and then I joined the tournament Discord and learned more about it. So what I learned
pretty easy.
Yeah, it was pretty easy. It was basically a straightforward process there.
We better go to the game now because it's getting started. So what are you thinking about here in terms of the balance of birds versus food? And I notice you're spending a bit of time here looking at the overlay, the habitat overlay.
Yeah, so I play a lot of games on the digital Wingspan. So I like the overlay view. So you just kind of get a good capture of the bird feeder and birds in the tray all in one. So that's really convenient. Yeah, I mean, one of the first thing that I always check out is the bird in the tray, especially if I'm going first. So, that really opened up the options of what birds you can play at the beginning. And really my go-to strategies for most of the game, I'm looking for, bird that takes either one or two resources, birds that are easy to play to fill up the first two columns, so you can have access to better action in the third column as soon as possible.
That ruddy duck is looking pretty tempting down there.
Yep, the ruddy duck is great for starting. The only drawback is 0 point, but again, you get to draw two and then discard one, so you gain one card. So that's pretty good for beginning.
Yeah, you're fine with sacrificing a point or two if it gives you a long-term game advantage, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Like being able to, just look through the cards and find the cards that's valuable is an advantage.
Yeah. Now, what do you think about the bonus cards? Like, what's your ideal situation here?
Yeah, I have some thoughts here, So that's the Falconer and the Breeding Manager. So for the Breeding Manager, I would say it's arguably one of the worst bonus card in the game, because you have to play a bird with 4 space for eggs, and then you have to lay 4 eggs to score 1 point. But for the Falconer, you just have to play a hunting bird and you gain 2 points. So I think, it was a no-brainer. I think the Falconer was the better option there.
Easier to achieve that condition then. Oh, and you've got the Northern Flicker and the California Condor. So it looks like you want to surge early, as you say, very low cost food. And you're also going to get a couple bonus cards right off the hop, and you'll gain worms in the bird feeder.
Yeah. So that's one of the key, the Flicker. If the bird feeder has grubs in them in the early game, it really gives you a huge head start by gaining extra food. I think, in Wingspan, especially at the early game, food, I would argue, is probably one of the most precious resources there, because if you look at the action, you can only pick up one food at a time. So by playing the Flicker and get multiple grubs, that's a really huge advantage.
Very good. I see the end of round bonus for round 2. You would also have 2 birds in play with tons of egg laying room there. So are you considering that as an option now too?
Oh, absolutely. You always want to play bird that synergize with either your end of round goal bonus or your bonus cards. Yeah, in this case, I'm looking at the cavity nest that synergize with the second end of round goal, and even the third, eggs in the forest, is really helpful.
Yeah, because I find sometimes planning 4 rounds ahead with those end of turn bonuses, it's pretty tough to make it work. Like, at what point, how do you take that into account? Is it something you kind of see where you're at the end of the third kind of round and just see how much points you can get on that last card? Or are you thinking as early as round 2, trying to plan ahead for that end of turn bonus?
Yeah. Yeah. End of round bonus is an interesting, topic. I think in general, I try to plan ahead. Like, I just start looking at what bird I can use to synergize with the end of round go bonus, even when I'm picking my cards in the starting hand. And I guess another important point about the end of round goals is, when I think about it, I don't look at the absolute points that you're getting. So if you look at the end of round goals, like you might notice that as you go into the later round, you score more points. But the difference between the first and second place is always the same. It's 3 points difference. So I'll argue that, the first end of round goal is as important as the last end of round goal because the difference is 3 points against your opponent.
And in a game like this, 3 points is going to matter. Like, they'll always come down to very close finishes.
Yeah. In a competitive game.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
For sure. How long have you been playing Wingspan for?
I want to say I started last year, so like a little bit more than half a year, but less than a year. But I spent a lot of hours on this game, so.
Oh, very good. And have you ever won any other tournaments, or was this your first win?
So I've won one previous tournament on Discord, so this is my second win. Yeah.
Very good. Making a habit out of it.
Yeah, we do have a lot of good players in that community, so I'm always happy to play.
Yeah, what do you think the edge, like, is it boiled down to a lot of games just, come down to just a couple points, do you find? Like, is it that close in terms of the competitiveness?
Oh yeah, I've seen so many scores that's really close. It really comes down to a couple points different when you are in that really, competitive plays area. So yeah.
Wow.
Usually the scores are pretty close.
So every move matters. How long do you take? They don't put any timer on you or anything in terms of decision making, eh?
Yeah, no, there's no timer. I mean, you're right. Like every points matter, like for example, if you're playing hunting birds, like every successful hunting can really make a difference. So
do you have to find that do you find that you have to be balanced in terms of your comfort with each of the different strategies that can get you to a win? Or do you tend to just pick one or two lanes that you just really, you make them work no matter what?
Yeah, I think it's really important to be flexible with your strategies because, Wingspan is the game, like you have to kind of adapt to strategies with whatever birds that you get in your starting hands or birds in the trade that you can pick up. It's really hard to go in with a strategy in mind and try to, fit your birds to your strategy. So I think it has to be the other way around.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, no, it's... Yeah, so I can see, and obviously the first move really sets the tone for the entire game. So, there's a lot of considerations in that very first move that kind of sets you off on a direction. And now, what happens if you start out on a direction and you find that the cards that you're getting are just not fitting? How do you pivot, or when do you pivot, or how do you deal with that situation?
Yeah, I mean, I bet that happens a lot as you play more Wingspan. I would say you just have to try to play as efficiently as possible. Make the best use of your birds that you have in the hand. Sometimes when you draw birds from the deck, you don't get a good one, and then you try to draw a second time. You still don't get the birds that you want. Sometimes you just have to settle with what birds that you have and play those birds instead of drawing more because you are just sunking more cost and more turn into drawing that bird. So yeah, you kind of have to realize where is the points of no return and just settle with whatever birds and play them.
Actually, I'd like to ask you, but the California condor there, it looked like you might go in the middle column. You decided on the wetland instead. What was the reason for that choice?
Yeah, I think in general, I think it's also a good idea in early game to develop your forest and your wetland. So the reason for the wetland is like you want to occupy the first space. So when you draw cards, you can get 2 cards instead of 1 at a time. And then for the forest, obviously you can gain more food. I think eggs are just not as precious in the early game because you only need eggs to play more birds, and the first column doesn't require any eggs, and the second column only require one egg for each bird. So that's why I decided to play in the wetlands so that I can draw more birds.
Right.
Your goal is to get to that third column as quickly as possible?
Yeah, definitely. Like fill up the first two columns is usually my go-to strategy. Then you are saving on resources, like precious resources. So each egg is 1 point, and then card as well. They're hard to come by in the early game. So you don't want to spend them exchanging for food unnecessarily. So
would you play 2 suboptimal birds if it got you to the third column?
Yeah, I mean, if they are cheap birds, like, birds that cost only 1 food, sometimes, for example, those hunting bird that doesn't have great hunting power. So I'm talking about the one where you roll the dice outside of the bird feeder. Those are not really great way to score points, but if they are cheap and they occupy one of the space in the first 2 columns, I would go for it. Yeah.
So I'm actually very curious, just to go off topic for a second, are there any other games that you played before Wingspan that prepared you to do well at this game? Did you find that there's other sort of similar mechanics in games that you enjoy?
Yeah, I do have a core group of friends whom we play board game with together, and we are always trying new games. I'm trying to think what games that we really like to play. I think we play a lot of the Great Western Trail. I don't think they're necessarily similar game, but that's one game that we play a lot.
Nate, do you have that game? That's a train game, isn't it?
No. It's a stagecoach kind of story game. Very heavy in theme, isn't it? It tells a story of.
Yeah,
very much story based.
Yeah, it's a story. The theme is basically like about selling cow and going to the Great West. I don't really know for sure how to describe that game, but it's not necessarily an engine building game. Yeah.
Resource management game.
Yeah, more like resource management. Yeah, and it has cards. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. So how closely do you watch your opponent? I notice you're clicking back and forth there a lot. So you're paying really close attention to what your opponent's up to?
Yes, definitely. You have to watch out for what birds your opponent play, what resources they have. So right now, I have the woodpecker in the forest, which allowed me to lay 2 eggs in 2 birds with cavity nests. But then my opponent would also get 1 egg in their cavity nest. So I'm just checking on my opponent to see if they have any bird with cavity nest. So ideally, if they don't have any bird with cavity nest, then I get a 2 points lead every time I activate the forest. So that would be really neat. But unfortunately here, they did play the chickadee, which has a cavity nest. So they're gonna gain that 1 free egg from my woodpecker. Yeah,
it's just interesting because in a lot of games that are like engine building type games, a lot of times there's a minimal sort of player interaction. There's nothing you can really do to prevent that. Like once your woodpecker is in play or whatever, or whatever bird it is that it benefits your opponent, there's not much you can do about it. So that's why I was curious, like how much is what your opponent is doing is affecting your decision making, turn by turn? Yeah,
I would say quite a lot. I think that there are some opinion that Wingspan is more like a solitaire games where everyone just build on their own board. But after spending so many hours, especially playing in tournament and with really competitive players, I would really say no. Like it's really not a solitaire. Like your opponent's move really matters. What your opponents have in their resource is important. Yeah, so
seems like that's the difference between a great player and an amazing player is this. I mean, you can play your own game, but to really get to the next level, you really need to look at what synergies and also, I mean, looking at, okay, what's the card that your opponent needs in order to make their build work? And if you can deprive them of that card, that could make a serious difference in their game.
No, absolutely. Like in competitive play, it's all about denying your opponent the card that they need, or even when you're activating your brown power. I think a lot of beginners maybe miss this rule in the game that you can always deny activating your brown power.
Right.
So, sometimes you might want to do that, especially birds that give resources to everyone. If you can't be sure that resource can generate you a lot more points than your opponent, maybe you want to skip activating that brown power. Like one good example is the voucher. When I see my opponent play the voucher, so that's the bird where if in between turns someone hunted successfully, you can gain the food from the bird feeder. If I see my opponent play the voucher, I almost never activate hunting in the early game, because food is just such a
valuable,
precious resource in the beginning.
Very devious of you. well done.
Well, when you're in the tournament, you're playing to win. So my opponent would do the same to me. So I think it's fair game.
Oh, completely. It just takes the next level of brain power to be not only playing your own game, but also playing the counter to their game. So that's very good. What's actually the highest score that you've ever seen in a tournament?
I think so far in all the tournaments that I've played in, I want to say I've seen 130s plus.
Nice.
Which is pretty high for a 2-players game.
Oh,
so,
wow. Yeah, definitely.
I was very impressed. Yeah.
For sure. And also, what would you say is the benchmark for a player who's thinking about joining the tournament scene? How would they know if they're ready to dive in and try that? Because I think for some people, there's some trepidation about, like, they think, oh, I'm not good enough to get involved. So what's the point when you would suggest they do get involved?
Yeah, I would say right now, our community is small and we are always welcome, new players to join the tournament. So I don't think that's necessarily a prerequisite in terms of like skill level for people to join. I'll just say if you're interested and you're curious, just sign up and just test it out. I mean, if you don't test out, you never know like how well you play against other people. And it's also a good way to find people to play, after the tournament. So in between tournament, we still play among ourselves outside of the tournament. So it's a good way to find players to play with. So yeah.
Oh, that's very good. Yeah, nice way to connect and make some friends too with other people who enjoy the same hobby.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And you played against Lone Eider as well. He's the one who organized the tournament.
Yeah, so Lone Eider organized the tournament. So he also actively participate in the tournament as well. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's been fun.
Very nice.
Yeah. So I guess this is towards the end of the first round. So are you looking? I saw you comparing here. So it looks like you pulled ahead. Now, is that a mistake on your opponent's part to not even challenge you for that in that category?
Yeah, I think they don't have a bird with the ground nest. That's why, they just can't do anything about it. So yeah, that was a really good lead, like a 4 points lead from the end of round go bonus. So yeah, I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah, and I like winning those end of round bonuses with the minimum possible that you can. I mean, if you can win with 1 egg extra, then it just shatters their confidence, but also it means you haven't wasted resources there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you just need 1.
Yeah. Do you see there's a bit of a mental game, psychological game that you're also playing? It's not just about efficiency, but you're also playing your opponent in the sense of like you maybe looking to shake them up, or like what sort of mind games can you play
I think there's a lot of mind game going on, like just I think especially in competitive play, I think there's a lot of guessing about like what your opponent next move would be, or what your opponent needs. And those are really important information. For example, like you might think that your opponent needs certain food in the bird feeder, and right now in the bird feeder it doesn't have the food that your opponent need. Then maybe you don't want to draw food and help them to turn over the bird feeder right now. You might do other things just to kind of delay their plans. So
do you play this game live very much?
Yeah, I mean that's my favorite way to play to play the game, to play with live players online. Yeah.
And do you find that it really helps to see people like either face to face or virtually face to face? Or, is this a game that's, equally strong when it's just played through the digital edition here online?
I think I enjoy both. I think, sorry, I misunderstood your question. When you say live, I thought, online. You mean like in real life?
Right. Yeah. Like playing. Well, I think it's funny now because there's a distinction between playing virtually online where you can see people's faces or playing live with the cardboard at a table. And I mean, in a way, both are very similar, actually. But what's your preferred method of the three methods?
I think for Wingspan, I definitely get a lot of enjoyments from playing online. Funny story, just that among my core group of board game friends, like no one really got into Wingspan like I do. So it was kind of hard for me to convince my friends to play Wingspan with me in real life. So I have to kind of rely on the digital version and play online.
It is funny because if you talk about, the theme and you're like, you play these birds and they lay eggs and they eat the food and it doesn't, is in a similar vein with Stonemaier Games, when my colleague here at Legendary Tactics and I would talk about, a game of viticulture. Very similar kind of thing. Like, if you just made that rosé at that moment, you would have won. It doesn't necessarily compel people to get the game to the table, and they're missing out on a great game.
Yeah. I think on the surface, that's the thing. I think it's both great thing. Like, on the surface, Wingspan has a very attractive theme and the rules are relatively simple. So it can really draw a lot of people in to play it. But at the same time, you also have a lot of depth that's very satisfying for people who are really passionate about engine building games. So I really like it a lot.
If you have a chance to try, I don't know if you've tried viticulture, but you can see the through line with viticulture and Wingspan. You can see the I wouldn't say that I would say they're kind of distant cousins, but there's definitely a similar kind of idea to it, in that you're working to react and work with what you got, but also find efficiencies and
finding maximum efficiency with what's offered to you. That's critical and fun. I enjoy that. Actually, something interesting with this game for me is that it became a fan favorite with my kids too. And I've got 2 kids under the age of 10 and 1 kid is 11. And we get this to the table and my wife enjoys it. My kids enjoy it. And we all play for different reasons. I think my daughter plays because she loves the birds and she loves the theme. And my one son is hyper competitive. And, when he's our age, he'll probably be on the tournament scene and he can beat me too, which is awesome. And then my other son, he just likes finding a strategy that's unique. And so it's neat that people find different reasons for playing a game.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. It's a family game and it just, fit the taste for everyone. It has something for everyone.
For sure. What would you say that you like most about the game?
I like the fact that it's a medium weight, engine building game. So, you have to plan ahead, but you don't have to plan ahead for the whole game. You kind of have to adapt to what comes up and just kind of make changes to your strategy along the way. I think that's one thing I like about it, and the rules are relatively simple. You have 4 actions, so it's not overly complicated.
You have 4 actions, but it always feels like there's so much more to think about than just 4 actions.
Oh yes, absolutely. I think another thing that's really key to getting really good at playing Wingspan is also the timing of your actions. So thinking about the sequence, how you want to play out your action can be the key here between winning or losing a game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if people watching the video are enjoying this chat and getting value from this, I'd really encourage them to check out our other Wingspan content and take a moment to join the channel and peck the subscribe button. And Tay-Ray, I'd also like to point out that you have your own YouTube channel called Tuck and Cash. So we'll link to that down below in the description. But could you tell us what we might find if we went to visit your channel?
Yeah, I just started the channel recently. So right now I'm posting a lot of gameplay from the tournament on my channel, and I do have voice commentary on the game. So yeah, if you're interested, please do check out my channel. I do have more content planned for the future, so stay tuned.
That's great. And you're focusing mostly on Wingspan, are you?
Yes, it's exclusively for Wingspan content.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And that's Cache, Cache, not Cash.
That's right.
No, it's not that.
Yeah, that's great. So as the game is progressing here, what it seems like you've played a lot into the forest, and but it's funny, you don't have a lot of food to work with, it appears.
Yeah, so I think at this point of the game, I'm looking at my board and I'm thinking, I really don't have a strong grassland engine going. I have the flycatcher which give grub, and I can only lay eggs. So I'm not going to make a lot of points by building a grassland engine. So at this point, I'm thinking like I have to go with either playing birds that give me a lot of points, or trying to maximize the points that I can get from the bonus card. So we kind of missed that. For the second bonus card that I got, it was the large bird specialist. So at this point, I was looking at birds that has wingspan greater than 65, I think, and try to get the maximum points I can from the bonus card. That's why I drew more cards. And it was nice that I drew the owl that satisfied the large bird specialist, and it also gave me additional bonus cards. So potentially I can make even more points from that bird. So
yeah.
That scissor-tailed flycatcher is not only the titular bird of the game, it's also really cool and worth 8 points. So
yeah, it's a cool birds and big birds. Yeah.
So I'm actually noticing that your opponent isn't getting as many points from birds as you are right now. But what I do notice is Devisme, I think that's your opponent, does have more brown powers. He's got every single card on his player mat is a brown powered card. Does that worry you at all that he's benefiting more on an ongoing basis from activating each area?
Yeah, I'm definitely keeping my eyes closed to my opponent board. I can see that they're definitely trying to build an engine in each habitat so that they can gain some points every time they activate their habitat, and that's a really strong strategy. Especially here, we're looking at the grackle and the blackbird. So every time you tug, you lay an egg. So that's 2 points there for each activation. So yeah, I think that's generally like the big two, the two big strategies for Wingspan. You either go for a really good engine, or you go what I call the big bird strategy. So you're playing birds that score you a lot of points, and also maybe give you bonus card that help you to gain even more points.
Do you see, when you see a balanced approach, like in this case, where every habitat is even, in the games that I've played, I've found a lot of times it feels like it's more successful to just go all in on 2 habitats and kind of like neglect the third, as you kind of have here. If you play into the grassland, then you'll be neglecting the wetland to a large degree. Do you find that that's the case, or do you think a balanced approach can work just as well?
I think the balanced approach can work just as well. If you're gaining 1 or 2 points from each habitat, it really adds up. And I mean, I'm definitely losing some points here by having only 1 bird in the wetland, because every time I draw a bird, I have to spend an egg to get the second card. So that's I'm basically spending 1 point to get a card. So definitely not ideal there. Yeah.
So you're looking to get the osprey down as quickly as possible here, or is that part of maybe a longer term strategy, or are you just not interested in that at all? You're focused on the other
it's
end.
Like you're focused on the cavity end of round goal here. He's only got 3 eggs versus 4.
So ideally, I think here I want to put down the osprey, and important because this is the last turn of the round. If I put down the Osprey and then at the beginning of the new round, I can draw 2 cards without spending any points. So ideally, I want to do that. But you got it right by looking at the end of round go bonus and my opponent board. They can potentially contest with me for the second round bonus. And again, I really want to get that additional 3 points lead. So I decided to lay 8 instead.
And he's got a lower capacity than you, so you had
exactly.
him all day long. So.
I think it was worth it for that 3 points lead. And just now you also saw me like denying the activation of the flycatcher because I was looking at my opponent's board. They basically only have 1 food, so that 1 grub is gonna worth a lot to them. But on the other end, I still have a lot of food, so I will make a good use of that grub, but not right now. So I just don't want to give it to my opponent. Yeah,
it's little decisions like that seem to have a big impact on the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it must be even harder than if you're playing, say, against 3 or 4 opponents, where one decision you have to balance, suddenly you're giving 4 food to opponents. Each of them are benefiting, whereas it's only one of you getting it. So thinking of it collectively like that might actually impact that decision too.
Yeah, absolutely. In more players games, you really have to think about each activation of your brown power, whether it's worth it or not.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. And but it's now with the bonus cards, sometimes in my games I found that you draw two bonus cards, you get to keep 1, and they're both not that great for the strategy that you're working with. And of course you get you just take the best one. But how do you overcome that kind of bonus card deficiency that can sometimes happen, where just luck of the draw, you're just ending up with bonus cards that you either can't use, you could potentially work towards, or they're just really never going to work with the strategy that you're working with. Like, how do you overcome that, or how do you balance that out with other play?
Yeah, I mean, bonus card is definitely an interesting one. It can really make or break the game. If you get a really good one, you're really gaining a lot of advantage. But like you say, sometimes you just draw the bad bonus card, and you just don't see any way to make points out of it. Especially in late game, a lot of the birds already put down, and you can't really do much about it. So what I would say about bonus card is just, you kind of have to look at the minimum points you can make out of that one bird. You want to make sure that, by playing that bird, so each bird has bird points already. So you kind of want to make sure that you are making some points by just playing that bird regardless of the bonus card, so that even when you draw a bad bonus card, it's not like the end of the world or the worst case, since you already make some points of playing that bird. Yeah.
That's great. So I'm just looking at, you're doing a lot of checking back and forth, lots of research going on, but at least you've shored up your wetland there.
Yep.
So
getting to that second column in each of them, that makes a difference, because then every time you activate, you're not wasting precious resources at this stage.
Now, do you find you ever
benefits.
Want to rush to the 5th column? Do you ever, certainly if you get certain birds in hand, like is it a good idea to do that, or do you feel it's more of just something that either isn't necessary or is something more of a late game kind of concern?
Yeah, I think that's really very situational. You have to have a good reason to rush it to the 5th column. Either you're trying to play birds that fulfill your bonus card, or you're trying to play birds that really can score you more points. For example, birds that give you bonus card, or big birds. Because we all know, like in the last 2 columns on the board, you have to spend 2 eggs to play that bird. So every time you have to take into account that cost there, and there's not that many birds that can net you enough points to make up for, to make it really worth it to play more birds in the 4th and 5th column.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but I was just wondering if you rush there to get there, say mid-game, at the cost of other areas, but you're in that column and you get those benefits if that can ever pay off, or if you just don't see that as a very workable strategy generally.
No, I think I've seen it work. Most notably, I think I've seen quite a few games where if you really just focus on building your grassland engine, so, you know, if you're lucky, maybe play like the raven or the killdeer in the grassland. And then you also have a lot of birds that allow you to tuck cards or allow you to lay more eggs. And then you just keep building that grassland. I think it's a viable strategy. It's just really highly dependent on what birds that you have. But
you see it as generally more viable in the grassland as opposed to any of the other ones.
Yeah, I would say grassland. I've seen a lot more strategies around that compared to other habitat. I think sometimes you can see in the wetland as well, because there's quite a few birds that allow you to tug and draw a card in the wetland, so you score points as you're drawing card and tugging cards.
Yeah.
Less so in the forest. I think in the base game, the forest engine is not as good or as reliable.
Yeah.
And you just denied your opponent again. So,
well, fish, yes.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting because you're really heavily going for the end of round bonuses. And he's really going for the brown, or he or she, I'm not sure which it is going for the brown powers and the engine build. And I would say you seem like you're about even at this point. I'm not sure what the scores are right now, but it feels like it's a really close game here.
Yeah, I think, at this point, I still think the game is very close. You know, the thing about, building engine, you're only really going to rip the benefit at the end of the game. So, they might not have a lot of points now, but in the last round, they're going to activate their engine and they're going to score a lot of points. For me, it's all about playing the birds that give me the most points. So it's really highly dependent on the food that I can get and the birds that I can draw. So yeah.
You do have a bunch of high scoring ones in hand. The American Ava set there, you've got 2 other 5-point birds. And I don't know if you'll even bother playing those 2-point and 1-point birds. Those may be just, you might want to cash those in for, say, some extra food or something, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think that there is at one point in the game where playing birds that only score you 1 or 2 points is just not going to worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just the cost of laying it is 2 eggs, and you only get 1 point from the bird itself. So you better really, at the late stage, be getting a lot out of it if it's not the points.
Yeah. I think one important concept here is, when I play the game, I always think about the average points that I can get from each turn. Here, for example, if I have to play a bird, but I have to draw food and then play the bird, that's 2 turns. So I have to divide whatever points that I get from playing that bird by 2. So that gives me my average points that I can make for each turn. And then I usually just compare it to the grassland because, typically you'll just lay egg in the grassland. It's very straightforward. You either get 3 points or 4 points. So you're trying to compare, like, are you getting more than just laying egg in the grassland by, drawing food, playing birds? So that's something to watch out for as well.
And we've got our first pink power bird went down.
Yeah.
From both sides of the table. That's seems like you guys are really avoiding those. Is that part of your intention?
Yeah, I mean, that just wasn't a good pink power at the early game. And the Ava set is a really interesting one. It's not one of my favorite birds. Like, I don't play a lot, but here it just makes sense for 2 reasons. One, so I was looking at my bonus card. I just needed that one big bird to get the maximum point from the bonus card, and the Ava set just fit the bill. And then second thing, knowing that my opponent is going to use the grassland engine a lot to score points in the last round, playing the Ava set makes sense because I get 1 free egg, so that reduces again the points per turn by 1 point. So
fits the bill. I see what you did there.
Oh yeah, no pun intended.
Why is this game so easy to do puns with?
Oh yeah, birds. Yeah, birds. So many birds.
Yeah.
So one thing we really enjoy with our channel too is inviting everybody watching the video to discuss with us their strategy. So please feel free to add your own comments and thoughts down, especially if they're strategy related. Would love to have you involved in the discussion. And also if you want to get involved in the tournaments, we'll put the Discord link down below so that you can get connected with that. Now everyone out there will know all of Tayray's strategies, so it may be harder for you to get a win now.
I know. I'll have to come up with more strategies. And
that's right. Yeah. There's knowing the strategies, and then there's being able to use them and to adapt. So I think you'll be fine because you seem to adjust well to the board in front of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was interesting. Sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it's interesting, like after playing in the tournament for a while and, facing the same opponent, I definitely noticed, people do have different play style and strategies that they prefer and go to. For example, like I prefer the, cheap bird in the beginning and build up my first 2 column. And the Visme, I've played with them for a few times. I noticed that they really like to play the engine in the grassland strategy. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to see that.
It's an easy strategy, right? I've always found, I think we suggested this in our strategy guide, that if you don't see another viable strategy, just spam eggs. Look at that, 6, and you won another end of round bonus here.
Yeah, you've netted 10 victory points over your opponent with that. With those it's almost feels like your opponent's neglecting those end of round bonuses. Like they're doing just enough to score minimal points, but they're not fighting you over it. But that's 10 points is pretty significant, and there's still one card left to go here. So
yep. Even if they stole one of those from you, that would, slow you down quite a bit if that's where you're getting a lot of your points from, right? So, but the problem is you've set it up nicely so that you could dominate the first 3 quite easily. The hard part now is shifting to this last round. Do you think you'll be able to win this last round goal here?
Yeah, so I'm definitely, that's what I was doing here, just checking out their board. I think I don't have enough space for eggs in the platform to compete for the last round. So that's just good to know ahead so that you don't have to focus on that. But like you say, winning the first 3 is already a huge lead. But, looking at their engine here, it's definitely scary. They are going to make a lot of points from the grassland.
Yes, sure. You can see that's shaping up for sure.
That's right. I'm just counting the points they can make here. So, for example, here they activate the wetland to draw cards. They get 2 points by tucking and laying, and then they activate the grassland, so they get 4 eggs, that's 4 points, and then they tuck to get grain, that's 1 point, and then they spend the grain to tuck 2 cards at 2 points, and then they tuck another card and lay, that's 2 points. I think they get like, yep. I think
that Junko and Crane work really well together. That's perfect.
That's a really good combo.
Yeah.
So they're getting like 9 points just off the grassland.
Wow.
So I was sweating a little bit. I knew like they are catching up fast here with that engine going.
Yeah, they sacrificed a little bit early and they sacrificed the end of round bonuses, but it's going to come down to, can they spam those eggs out? And it's the tucking strategy is really, it's funny that your opponent's going to a completely different pathway than you, and you're both very competitive here.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this game a lot. Like, I learned a few things from my opponent here. I was pretty amazed by the engine that he was able to build.
Do you find the tucking strategy is underrated? I find that a lot of players, in my limited experience, seem to undervalue it as a way to win.
Yeah, I think that the tucking is a really good way to score more points. But there's 2 different kind of tucking. So there's one that allow you to tuck a card and lay an egg. So the card is spent. So you tuck the card, you lay an egg, that's 2 points, but your card is spent. But there's also birds that allow you to tuck and draw. So you get the card back. So even though you're gaining only 1 point, but you don't have to worry about running off cards to tuck. So I think overall, I've seen a lot of competitive games. It comes down to who tucked the most card. You just have to balance between like, are you playing the bird that tuck and lay eggs, or the one that tuck and draw cards, and how are you getting those extra cards to tuck and turn them into points?
Very good. Yeah. One thing I love about this game is no matter when I play it, and even like though this is a tournament game, like it just feels so relaxing. That music
It
is
is.
so nice. The theme is so pleasant. And it just like, do you find it gets it all stressful when you're in a tournament, or does it still feel like just a nice stroll through the woods?
I definitely enjoy it a lot more. Like, I want to put in, my best play and try my best. I think my opponent would like to see that as well. But yeah, like you say, like the music and the theme and the artwork really helps, to chill things out a little bit. It's like I'm trying to win here, but at the same time, I'm enjoying the scenery, I'm enjoying the birds. Yeah, it's a really enjoyable game.
Funny you bring up art. It seems a lot of board games recently, they're really spending time hiring quality artists and improving the aesthetics of the game. And Stonemaier is certainly known for this. But it's very nice that game companies are investing in the artistic side of this hobby.
Yeah, I love it. I always enjoy seeing good artwork and good theme. Another game that has really good artwork that I thought was really unique and really enjoy a lot of is Scythe. I don't know if you guys have played that.
Yes, another Stonemaier classic.
Yeah, it's just such a nice theme and the artwork. I'm amazed.
That's definitely. I mean, it's an interesting game in itself, but the artwork in that one in particular, I find out elevates it to a new level because you really feel like you're part of this sort of steampunk type world, and so it's really interesting that way.
Yeah, we're immersive. Yep.
Absolutely. So. I love the concept of that game too, where you're unveiling those spaces that then start to build your engine too.
Yeah. I enjoy that a lot too.
Yeah, that's great.
That's awesome.
So lots of clicking back and forth, lots of decision making, and it looks like you're still worried about that engine.
Oh yeah, at the end of the game, I'm always just checking on my opponent board and trying to just check up, what was their standing in terms of points. And I think I was also making an important decision here whether to play the spotted owl. Because the spotted owl, I have to spend 2 eggs. And then I get a bonus card, but there's no guarantee that I'm going to get a good bonus card. So,
though that was going to be my question was, I mean, I know it's pretty good. It's got 5 point. Obviously, you played it, so it must have made sense. But to play a card like that, I mean, where you can pick up a bonus card, that may help you, it may not.
It's a gamble all the time.
It is. Yeah. So generally, if you can, you'll try and play those games a bit earlier, I would assume, or is it just kind of like a Hail Mary pass? Sometimes at the late game, you're like, well, they'll probably get at least a couple victory points out of this.
I think in general, it is better to play a bonus card bird in early, so you can kind of still try to score it if you don't have a lot of birds down. In the late game, it's more about you just don't have better plays, like playing that bonus bird. It's just your best chance of earning the most point. Then you just have to go for it. I think in this case that's true because I think I need to play the spotted owl to get 7 points from the large bird specialist there. So that's the one last bird that I need to get 7 points. So I thought that was worth it.
One thing I notice, which if I were competing against you here, I'd be looking at, or I mean, it's too late now to do it, but star powers, you've only got 1 bird with a star. Your opponent has 0, and that would have actually worked in quite a few of the different end of round goals. So why is it that you think your opponent and yourself obviously didn't opt for more of those?
Yeah, I think in this game, like that's definitely a lot of value by playing bird with star nest. I think what happened was that in some of the game, like the bird with star nest just doesn't come up, or it's not in the starting hand. So it's really kind of out of your control. But you are right. Like, if you look at a lot of the end of round goals that has to do with nest types, and it's not uncommon to see like, you see 3 different nest type, as you can see here in the end of round goal bonus. And if you can play a couple star nest bird, it really gives you legs up.
It's so efficient because you play one bird and it can score in 3 different end of round goals there, right? Or maybe even all 4 if you put it in the forest.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really helpful. Another bird that, you know, I don't like a lot in typical game, but sometimes can really be helpful in end of round goal bonus is the migratory bird. Say if you have goal that say like eggs in the forest, egg in the wetland, then you can just lay on the migratory bird and then just park it wherever you need it. So yeah,
that's so frustrating as an opponent to see your opponent just flying them around wherever they need them.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I have to say the NATO and I are you know, the 2 weaker players at Legendary Tactics. Cax is our expert, and he couldn't make it to the interview today, unfortunately. But and that's something he does, is he really does the star powers quite well. And every time it's so frustrating because it's just so easy for him to win those end of round bonuses while we're struggling along with our engines.
Yeah. It's interesting that you said you don't like the migratory birds, because I've seen them used very effectively sometimes. I was thinking that they, you know, I mean, I don't know if overpowered is too strong a word, but you're not a fan, eh?
Yeah, I don't think they're overpowered. I think when you use them well, they can be very beneficial. I think it could just come down to play style. Like some people just like the migratory bird and they have a good strategy around it. I think that might be one area that I need to explore, like how to really utilize the migratory bird. Yeah.
Well, especially since a lot of games I find I'm clicking to get food, then I click and draw a few cards up, and then I'm clicking on to get some eggs so then I can play those birds and that sort of thing. So having a migratory bird to kind of help out with that. I mean, it may not work for your opponent here because they're very focused, obviously, in the one habitat, but but in general, I find I'm drawing from all 3 habitats, so it can be very nice to have that little bonus. It does require some planning ahead, but
yeah, I mean, it saves you resources. So if you look at the second column here, you need to exchange 1 egg for extra card or 1 card for extra food. And if you have the migratory bird, you can kind of get a free pass and, ignore the cost, which is really good. My only complaint is that, those benefit is only, good for the beginning of the game. In the late game, the migratory bird just kind of loses its power. So I don't play a lot, but yeah, in some situations, it can be very powerful.
Wow, I actually really like some of the cards on your opponents, Matt. I mean, they had the Ruddy Duck down early. That's one that really helps with the card draw. And they've got a Crow down. And overall, there aren't any other like majorly overpowered birds on the table. But I'm enjoying, like, if I had to predict right now who's going to win this game, I would not be putting money on either of them. I know it's that close. It was
such a close game.
Well, except you got a lot of points from those end of turn bonuses. That's true. That's a pretty big swing, because not only is it 10 points. Sorry.
I mean, look at all the cards that they tuck, those numbers.
Yeah, huge. Like 6 tucked under the sandhill crane. That's
I know.
Pretty decent.
That's
5
huge.
Under the mountain chickadee.
Yeah, it easily covers my leads from the end of round go.
For sure. Yeah, 4 under the common grackle, 3 under the junco. I mean, huge numbers there.
Yeah, I guess that with my thinking with the 10-point victory points is it really counts double, because you've denied those points to your opponent as well as scored them for yourself. Whereas when they're tucking, those are just straight ahead points for them, right? So, if you get 10 points in the end of turn bonuses, it's really worth 20. Whereas tucking 6 points for the Sandhill Crane is only worth 6 to them, because it hasn't taken anything away from you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. Like, between going first or second, it is easily like a 6 points difference, even though you're gaining a 3 points lead, because your opponent could have gotten that 3 points from you. Like, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, and look, you ended up being really balanced across all the habitats in the end.
1 turn left here.
Yeah, 1 turn, and I make a mistake here.
Oh no! What happened?
So I knew I was gonna get a free egg but I don't have a spot in a ground nest for it. I forgot that for the avocet, you have to lay that eggs in another bird, not on avocet.
Oh,
of course. Yeah. Yes. I've made that mistake a few times myself.
Yep. And like I say, I don't play the avocet a lot, so I think that was part of the reason I just miss it, you know.
Yeah, going off script.
Yeah.
Ooh, and do you give it to him or not?
Yeah, I think this point doesn't matter because I'm the last player. So.
Oh, right, of course. So.
Yeah. So
do you see an advantage in a lot of games? For example, you get an advantage. Oh, you just missed that
here
too.
we are. Oh wow,
Yeah.
This is we better turn it back to Tay right here to comment on the end around goals here.
So
okay, so you take them handily there.
At this point, I think I was feeling pretty confident. I thought I have a pretty good lead here. Look at those points.
Looking very strong.
Yeah.
I'll make up some ground here.
Oh, they creep up really quickly.
Yeah, the tucked cards.
Yeah, look at tucked cards.
Oh my gosh! Wow, photo finish
is a close finish.
I was, excited, but at the same time, wow, woof.
Unbelievable. Well, that was close.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations once again on the win there.
Yeah,
thank you.
That was very well earned, and it's amazing to see at the high level play here, just how really just one small decision may have, and changed the entire course of the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe choosing to not activate your brown power may have, those couple times that may have done it.
Yeah.
So tell us what we're seeing here now. What are you showing us?
So I was just reminiscing my mistake with the avocet here.
Right. Yes.
And I mean, you're absolutely right. Like, think about it. Like, that's only a 2 points difference. And when I play the spotted owl, I pick up the bonus card that gives me 3 points. So if I pick up a bad bonus card that gives me no points, I could have easily lost the game. So it was so close. The game could have gone either way. Yeah.
Yes.
Very good. But you've had some really great strategies. Are there any last thoughts you'd like to share with listeners about either the tournament scene or about this game or anything else?
Yeah, I think I really enjoy playing Wingspan a lot, especially on the tournament. So the Discord tournament community is a really friendly community. There's a lot of good players on there. So if you're interested to play with us, please join the Discord channel for the tournament.
That's great. And we'd also like to give special thanks to Lone Eider, who's coordinating the tournaments. He's helping us connect with the champions like yourself. And Wingspan is just such a beautiful game with a growing audience. So we appreciate you joining us today. And we appreciate the people joining us through YouTube. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, guys.